that's what a lot of publishing arms look at. A lot of the time they don't really look at the actual projects themselves. Sometimes they will look at the teams and say, okay, what's your experience? What ideas have you got? Not just like specific games, but like what other sort of like what's your team sort of thing, so we can gauge if you've got what it takes. And a lot of publishing decisions are made off that fact. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I'm Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill, and I'm joined as ever by indie developer Mr. Christopher Jarvis.
Hello.
Yeah, so it's been a hot minute, I guess. Like, everyone's just talking about the Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks. Guess what we're not going to be talking about today? Probably that, because everyone...
We talked about it.
Yeah, everyone's talking about it, right? It's bad.
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah.
Old news.
Poor Rockstar.
Poor Rockstar. Yeah. It's good to see people band together and wish them well.
Yeah, if only they did that for other companies. That'd be nice, you know? Like, that'd be cool. It'd be nice to know that we're all in the same boat here instead of, you know, being segregated out. But anyway, let's get off that topic before I go into a rampage. Yeah, how's it been, Chris?
Yeah, it's been good. I've been okay. I need to get back on my indie game stuff, so I need to find some time to get that going. What about you and your stuff?
Yeah, it's going. I really haven't had that much time. Like, I've got one more month on this side project that I'm working on, which everyone will hear about someday, I'm sure. But yep. Yeah, once that's out of the way, then I can get back to Long Gone, like, full on, and really start churning that stuff out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that day coming in the next month or so. So
yeah, looking forward to hearing us talk about that. That's going to be good.
Yeah, counting down the days. Like, it's just I've been on this like weird hiatus, like just when everything's getting sort of crazy for me as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to it. That's sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, everyone's fine. Just busy, really busy. I'm fasting again right now, which is not fun. I recommend it, but I don't recommend it at the same time.
Grumpy Finn.
Yeah, it's like the easier. Yeah, you get hangry a lot, right? Because you're sat there and you can't eat. I'm not doing it for any religious reasons. Just like so our listeners know, it's purely for I gained 15 pounds. I'm like, all right, I need to get rid of this shit. So I'm trying to get rid of it. I've done it before. I did it for like 3 months and I lost 20 pounds. So it worked out. I'm gonna do it again. Yeah, I just can't eat until 5, and then I have to stop at 9 p.m. so I only get to eat for 4 hours, and then I'm just hungry for the rest of it. It is what it is. I'll be fine.
Wow.
I'll live. First world problems. The first of all first world problems. Jesus. Yeah, it doesn't get any more.
Yeah, I'm choosing to not eat food. Yeah,
that's quite my ancient ancestors, like in Celtic Ireland, are just sat there, you know, like shaking in their boots, just like, oh, where are we going to get the next meal? And I'm just sat here like trying to, I can't eat anymore. You know, that's quite a jump in 2,000 years, right? But hey, There we go. There we are.
Another jump from 2,000 years ago is video games, which we're going to talk about. What we've got today to discuss is Dunkey becoming the video game YouTuber, which some of you may know, some of you may not know. He is going to be branching out from being a YouTube video creator to a video game publisher. So that's interesting. We can talk about that.
Sure.
And then the other thing we can talk about is it's going around the Twitterverse again. Game developers charging for their mentorship. Good thing, bad thing, grey area. Is it stopping poorer would-be game developers becoming game developers? Is it a good way to get into the industry? Is it taking advantage of people? And everything in between. So we can discuss the finer points of that. But yeah, I guess we can jump in with the Dunkey thing.
Yeah.
So I found out about this and I was like, who's this Dunkey guy? He's like a YouTuber. He does like 5-minute videos and reviews video games. And as the name would suggest, he dunks on them, I think is where he got his name from. So he a lot of the time doesn't like video games, or at least he's very not shy about...
He's critical.
Very critical,
right.
Yeah. So there'll be some games that he loves, like even his Elden Ring review. He says that he likes the game, but he's spends the whole he says spends about 10% of the time saying he loves the game and he's played it 4 times.
Yeah.
And then he spends like 90% of the review saying about how bad it is. So he kind of comes across as this. To me, it seemed like he's playing up to the camera, like playing up to his name and like dunking on games, which is valuable information to people about things that are wrong in games.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with critics inherently. That's for sure. Yeah.
And and he's got this reputation of having integrity in that he means what he says and he says what he means, which is fine, fair enough.
Sure.
But to me, that's a bit of an odd thing to then go into video game publishing. So he released this 5-minute video or 6-minute video outlining as to why he wanted to be a video game publisher. And I guess the headline as to why he wants to be a video game publisher is that he's been making YouTube videos for like 11 years. He's successful on YouTube, so he's got a following. That's fine, fair enough. And that the fact that he's played so many video games that he knows what makes a good video game and what doesn't make a good video game,
right.
What's popular and what's not popular, and what's fashionable and not fashionable in terms of video games. And so therefore he would never risk his legitimacy by trying to push some junk ass video game that he doesn't believe in.
Yeah, that's a quote, right?
Yeah, like paraphrasing that. So that on the surface, it's like, okay, that's fine. But what have you got apart from money that means that you're going to be a good person to work with in being a video game publisher? Like, so I guess what my major interesting was like, okay, so you make YouTube videos and you're popular. You've probably got some money from being successful.
Sure, he's got almost 8 million subscribers. So yeah, that's okay. That's bringing in some cash. Yeah.
Very successful. So yeah, you're bringing in the cash, and so you want to spend some cash and like promote, like give money to game developers to create video games that you think will be good and successful. Sure. The thing is though, it kind of comes back to this GTA 6 thing where game fans and like reviewers seem to have this disconnect about what games in development are supposed to look like, and understanding that a game is good before it's released is very, very difficult. Like if you play a game that's halfway through development, it's not fun, and it only gets fun like right at the end. My concern is that this guy will be like, I know what makes a good video game, I know what makes a bad video game, I played your video game and it's really, really bad. And it's like, well, yeah, because we're like 3 weeks in. So yes, like it's going to be bad until further along. And the point is, you got to figure out, are these people going to create a game that's going to be good by the end of it? Should I give them the money now? It's like all about risk and reward, isn't it? You've got to place a bet on what you think is going to be good later. And so I've seen nothing from his videos that would suggest that he's got that skill or ability. But I hope to be proved wrong, because I'm an indie dev. I want there to be more publishers. I want there to be like all the publishers, so that the best ones rise to the top, and that there's more money floating around for indie game devs. Yeah, like myself. What are your thoughts on this, Vin? I know this was something that you weren't really aware of, and that I've introduced this to you, and you've seen like just the first video. What's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this taps into a bigger narrative, not really specific to do with this specific YouTuber, Dunkey. He is a critic. He critiques video games for a living. He has a lot of success with that. More power to the guy. Awesome. The problem that comes with it, and it's a trend that's happening more and more, and it's becoming more of a problem, is that gamers in general and critics and journalists and things, because they're exposed to so many video games and they're exposed to like different types of experiences and stuff, a general consensus is that they believe that they know how games work and function because they play a lot of games. Mm-hmm. That's not true. There is a vast chasm between those two things. Playing a game and knowing what's fun is like, there's a little bit of that in development, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of that in development, don't get me wrong. But the actual process of making a video game is just a completely different beast. And it's just like this general assumption that people have is like, oh, I play a lot of games, therefore I know how to make games. I know how games are made or how they should be made. That sort of assumption is dangerous because it sort of puts people into weird situations. However, like with this situation in general, like normally I'm okay with like more money coming into the industry for publishing purposes, the better, in my opinion. It's never a bad thing. Doesn't matter if he's got like certain opinions about certain games and he's only going to publish like certain games, fine, because those people that are getting published, at least they're getting funded. That's the good side of this. That's how I sort of look at this. More money in the pool for indie developers to swim in, the better. Can't be a bad thing. But it does have this weird sense of arrogance in the video. Like, no offense to the guy, but like it's not really arrogance. It's more what's the word I'm looking for? Ignorance. Sorry, that's the word I was trying to.
Yeah.
I don't know why that escaped me. It's kind of just a general ignorance of the gaming community that I play a lot of games, therefore I know how games should be made. The problem with this is that he knows what a good game is, and I have no doubt that he hasn't. He's got a good sense of what makes a decent game, but he only knows what makes a decent game at the end of production, and that is very particular sort of subject to make, because as the point that you already made, what happens when you see a game in 3 weeks, 3 weeks into production? How are you going to be able to have that foresight? Because a lot of that knowledge that you gain from making a game allows you to sort of like to squeeze all that sort of stuff out and use your imagination to know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Like that sort of experience and that sort of knowledge and that skill set is a very particular thing, because you need to know, because games look like ass for 80% of their development. Like that's the blunt end of it. Like you don't really get the experience of a game for quite a while, and there's a good chance like a lot of good ideas don't make it into the final game, and I mean really good ideas, like the ideas that sound awesome in the pitch don't make it sometimes, and that might be the make or break thing, which he greenlights games on.
Decide you to spend money. So you got to get used to, I guess one of the things of being a publisher is getting used to going, oh, I love that idea, you've sold it to me, and then it getting stripped down and then just hoping for the best. But when people are taking it at face value and they don't know that these things are stripped away, obviously, because you want to keep that a secret. You don't want to be like, this game was like 10 times better in production, but that's all gone now. Here's what you've got. Like, can you imagine that as a marketing campaign?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you've got to have all that knowledge and keep that under your hat. And especially if you want to be a publisher, like you've got to be promoting the quality of the game, because you've put your money against it. You can't turn around and say, this is a load of crap, I don't want this anymore. You can't like pull out when you're a publisher. You have the contract, you pay the money, and then you have to stand behind the game. One of the things he says is, like he doesn't want to. He'd never put his name against risk his legitimacy by trying to push some junk-ass video game. Unfortunately, that might be part of the job. When things don't go well, and you've put your money in the game, and then things happen, production doesn't go according to plan.
Yeah,
you're coming up to a deadline. You can either spend more money and lose more return, or make your money back at a later date, or you can't really cut your losses because you're tied into a contract. So you have to, promote something that you may not believe in. Doesn't mean that other people may not believe in it. A lot of video game publishers don't play the games that they make and promote. Like not everyone that makes and promotes it, like mobile games, the people that work at those publishing companies, they may not be mobile game players. They may not have any stake in it. So I understand the sentiment in being like, I'm going to be like the guy that believes in the games that he's publishing, but you may have to try to flog something that you're not happy with, and that's just part of the business.
Yeah, I mean,
but as long as you believe that someone might like it, then I guess that's the healthy way to approach it. Like, this game is for this type of person, and try to promote it in that respect. Because I'm guessing a big chunk of having a YouTuber being a publisher is that they're going to make a load of videos about the game and like sing its praises and stuff, right?
That is the irony, right? Like he's a video game critic, not really a reviewer, I would argue. There's a subtle difference. Being a critic, it's the same thing with Zero Punctuation and Yahtzee, right? Like if Yahtzee tried to do a positive review, for example. Like his positive reviews, like, and I've seen his positive reviews. His positive reviews are neutral because the only thing he can do is like not complain about them, you know? And it's this weird sort of irony that he's gotten himself into. But you can't actually be too positive about the game because it's not his brand, you know what I mean? So like it's gonna, like, Dunkey's gonna have this weird sort of situation where he's gonna have to be super positive about the games that he's really excited about instead of just being critical. And there will be this day of irony that comes across him where people start doing Dunkey style reviews on the games that he has published. Yeah, that is going to be a day which he's going to have to grapple with. And like I said, like, this isn't a bad thing inherently. Like, it's always good to have more money in the industry and all that sort of stuff. But the point that does like bring me pause is that general ignorance that comes with the idea that I play a lot of games, therefore I know what a good game is, therefore I know how to make them. It's just like that last jump is just like you just jumped across the Grand Canyon when you, like, the first one was a skip. It's like, yeah, of course you're gonna play a lot of games, you're gonna learn a lot of things which make a good and a bad game, but you don't know how to make that or like help others make that. All you can do is throw money at it, which he's obviously got ample amounts of if he's like setting up a publishing arm. And like, I respect the passion that he's got, but like that last jump, like, I can only hope like he has prepared himself for that bit, because it's astronomical, like in terms of how much a game changes, how much like vision and pre-thought you have to do, because a lot of the game's best mechanics aren't in the pitch process. A lot of them get discovered as the game's being made, and if they don't get funding, then they can never like have that moment to find it. So you're not only investing in ideas, which he seems to be very specific about. It's like, okay, I'll only invest in games that I like, game ideas that I like. What about the teams? Have you looked at the teams? Like, because if a team has got a lot of talent and you can see they're on the edge of making something amazing, and they haven't got an idea yet, but you know they're going to get there. And because that's what a lot of publishing arms look at. A lot of the time they don't really look at the actual projects themselves. Sometimes they will look at the teams and say, okay, what's your experience? What ideas have you got? Not just like specific games, but like what other sort of like, what's your team sort of thing, so we can gauge if you've got what it takes. And a lot of publishing decisions are made off that fact. So the fact that it's so specifically focused on the products rather than the people that are making them, again, it's that general ignorance of like, these things aren't created in a vacuum. They're dynamic things that take time and talent and a lot of hard work to make, and you have to really push through sometimes. I'm not saying you should just greenlight every single game in the world and hope that it gets good. It's just, no, it's a different skill set. It's just a really different skill set that I hope like he is kind of prepared for, because like otherwise there will be a day where he puts out a bad game. That's the thing. So like this statement, this X statement at the beginning, like, you can trust me, I'm only going to put games that are good. Like, you know me, like, look at all these videos that I've made. It's like, there will be a day when you put out a bad game though, man. It's just going to happen. Like, Sony put out bad games. If Nintendo put out bad games, everyone puts out a bad game.
Everyone puts out bad. Yeah, everyone has a flop every now and again, 100%. Or just something lukewarm and mediocre, you know?
Yeah, something that isn't a 10 out of 10 or amazing. Because like he sets himself up in the video like, oh, I am like, look at these games I've helped promote in the past. I've helped promote Cuphead and Hollow Knight and stuff. And I'm not going to do anything with clones and stuff like that. It's like, dude, do you know like 90% of the industry is between those two things? You know that, right? It's like 10% is made of 10 out of 10s, and the other, like 5% is made out of 10 out of 10s, and the other 5% is made out of clones. In the middle, there is just a wide range of stuff, man. And they take skill and time and effort to really sort of look after and nurture and encourage, because all the 10 out of 10 indie games, like, they, for the most part, they're either self-published or they're getting done by big publishing arms that have got a lot of experience in this sort of stuff. People like Devolver Digital and things like that. Like, they know what to find and they know how to nurture that stuff. And there's a reason why they got to that point to get that game that's a 10 out of 10. It's like, it's very rare, like, them games in that 90% that's stuck in the middle. And that's what he's aiming for. And he needs to, I hope that, it's just this wider sort of ignorance. And this goes across the entire industry. And it's not really for him specifically. It's just gamers in general. Like, we need to make people understand, like, it's a different skill. It's like you're watching a football game, right? Like, you see 11 guys kicking a ball around on a field, and it's just like having the ignorance of saying, "Oh yeah, I could do that." You know, I've watched
I've seen all the games.
Right,
Yeah.
I've watched Everton for like 22 years. Therefore, I can, I'll definitely be able to manage a team. That'd be easy, right? That's basically what people are saying. This is what this is. I've watched
what players
football.
are good. I know what players are bad.
Exactly.
Therefore, I can choose the good players.
Yeah, you can choose the good players, but can you train them? Can you nurture them?
Yeah.
Can you look after them? That is a different skill, and it's the fact that people think that they can just make that jump overnight because they have watched a lot of football or they have played a lot of games. It's not. I really wish it was that simple, but it's not.
And it'd be interesting to see if he then does videos on other games. Like after he's a publisher and has published games and he's like backing his games, is he then going to dunk on other video games? Because again, that's
the competition.
That's kind of like that's in bad taste also, like with a publisher.
Yeah. Is it morally right?
You don't want to piss off any potential new clients. Like, why would you want to dunk on a video game that you may then want to work with later down the road? Like, the more people that you badmouth for, again, you can be honest, you can be whatever, it's fine. Like, having integrity is really valuable. But if his style and his brand specifically for Dunkey, he doesn't hold any punches. And
more power to him.
I come back
that.
to, but yeah, more power to him. You know, it takes a lot of balls. But what you're doing with that is that you're then potentially putting off people coming towards you to try and pitch to use you as a publisher. So you might not get to work with some amazing teams that you would love to.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying change your style or anything like that, but there's a lot to be said for. And so it's from your tweet that really resonated with me. It's like people need to learn and understand how to say the words, this game isn't for me, but I'm sure some people would love it.
Yeah.
And understanding who that audience is and like, this game is for this sort of audience. If you like these games, then you're going to love this. Rather than just saying this mechanic sucked.
Yeah.
This battle sucked. This, this.
Yeah,
part of this
it's
sucked.
that verbiage which annoys me. Like we can debate like if a mechanic is good or not for why you believe it's not good. But when people use keywords like, "Oh, developers are lazy," things like that really gets to me because it's just like they're not lazy. You just didn't connect with that mechanic. If it's a bad mechanic, then we can discuss why it's a bad mechanic. But calling them lazy is annoying because like games developers, in my opinion and my experience, like I've worked in Japan, America, Canada, like I have worked all over the world in this industry. I have yet to meet one lazy games developer in my life. They are some of the most hardworking people in the world. Yeah, but you're not lazy though, are you, man? Like you might joke about it and scoff about it, but like you give up your free time. How many hundreds of hours have you put into your indie game?
That's a good point.
Are you lazy? No, like it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. So like it's keywords like that annoy me, and it sort of filters into this. Like there was a headline which I saw today about Hellblade. And just the general ignorance from the gaming community of like IGN had to put out an article that was titled Hellblade developer had to apologize and sort of explain that they are not using AI voices in their final version of their game. It's just used for sort of like development purposes, placeholder purposes. And there's a lot of skeptical sort of replies to that. And it's like, that is standard practice across the entire industry in AAA. Entire industry.
Yeah, for years.
Like, because one of the last things that you do is bring in voice actors. Well, not one of the last things, but it's pretty heavy into development by that point. Yeah. But you still need to like figure out all these things, and you need to figure out pacing and how people are talking. You walk up to a character, you say, "Hey, give me a quest." Instead of just having text for the whole time in development, we use AI voices. But the fact that we have to explain that to people as if it's like gamers are trying to like do got you sort of situation of like, you're using AI voices instead of real people. That's bad. NFTs and something
cheap.
else.
Yeah.
Right. And all that sort of stuff. And they're trying to hit that moment. And it's just like, that is standard. And it's like that, it taps into this general ignorance of the industry.
The ignorance of development.
Yeah. And they just don't get it. And it's fine that they don't know it. I have no problem with people not knowing these things. But when they come out and proclaim things as if they are fact, as if, no, they shouldn't make games like this, they should make games like that and stuff like that. It's just like, are you really okay? Like, you're just going to come out and make these broad sweeping statements without any pre-knowledge of how the industry actually works. And then then like put it out there to the point that other people are picking it up, and then it becomes like this zeitgeist sort of understanding of what they think the industry is and how it actually works. It's like, no, like this isn't cool, guys. Like it's fine like not knowing how things work. Just stop like putting it out there like you think that you know, because you don't. And like this sort of pertains to it, I guess. But you know, I don't know Dunkey or whatever. Like I don't really follow his content. I wish him all the luck in the world. I just hope that he's prepared for that very specific sort of skill set, which it seems like he sort of skipped over in his introduction video. And maybe he's just
almost the most important. Yeah, to developers that have worked with publishers, it'd be like you're kind of selling yourself to. It seems like he's selling himself to the audience rather than the game developers.
You're absolutely right.
But that might just be a stroke of genius. He might just be doing exactly the right type of marketing on YouTube. So,
but how is he going to promote a game when he's a critic? You know what I mean? Like it's going to be stuff like that, because it's all good and well, because the good thing that he's got a separate line of revenue coming in. But it will get muddy at some point. He will put out a bad game. He will criticize games which are his competition, like his direct competition. When does that become morally right and wrong? There's a lot of stuff when you see influencers.
When does it become bad for business? Like if you badmouth every other game in your genre that you want to be publishers of, you're not going to get a very big pool of potential developers for next time.
Yeah, then you're going to lose viewers because, like, you know, this doesn't really resonate true to me. Like, there's a lot of other people that are really enjoying this game, and it's just this one guy that's criticizing it. It seems strange. Oh, it's because like he's got another game which is kind of similar to this, and he doesn't want to be seen as the clone, which he mentioned in his original. Like, it's a whole storm that he's got to deal with right now. And it's this wider thing of like when influencers try and switch over to become developers, and sometimes it's super successful. Like it can really work out. It's like I've seen journalists.
I'm hoping he changes his tune, and I hope he starts using the right words that YouTubers should be using. Like, it's not for this person, or like these people, or promoting games that you really like. Like the best publishers promote the games that are their competitors and say why it's really cool. Those are the publishers that I really like. Mike Rose from No More Robots. They've got the Senders, and they keep doing about all the other downhill like games and stuff. They like say about all, you know, they sing other games' praises, like the Ubisoft game that was similar to Descenders that came out.
Right.
And yeah, it's just like, this looks so awesome. I can't wait to play this.
Same thing as like Phil Spencer, right? Like Phil Spencer is constantly talking about certain games that are on the Sony platform. Like he constantly talks about Destiny 2. He constantly talks about like, oh, I'm really looking forward to playing God of War this year. You know, it's because these people play games and they understand that.
Yeah.
And it's like and like I said, it can be successful. You get influencers like Alana Pierce, for example. She now works at Sony Santa Monica, right? Like she switched over, and it was the same thing with I think it was Andrew Garfield, like the guy that used to do a podcast on IGN for IGN Beyond, right? Like podcast Beyond. He switched over and he became a developer at Sucker Punch. Worked on Ghost of Tsushima, and it can work a lot of the time, but going from influencer to publisher, that is you're making jumps there.
Huge change.
You're making jumps there because you're sort of skipping out the middle bit, which is kind of important. You know, like a lot of the best publishers out there are people that have nurtured talent,
ex-devs,
and they understand like exactly what it takes to make a game. I hope it works out for him, because it's always a good thing, like I said, to have more money in the industry. So I really do hope that it works out for him. But like he needs to be prepared, because there's a lot of stuff coming.
Steep learning curve though.
Yeah.
And the thing about clones as well, it's like some of the best games ever are clones.
Kind of clone. Like, Ghost of Tsushima is kind of an Assassin's Creed clone.
It's kind of Assassin's Creed clone. Yeah, and like Angry Birds is probably the most successful clone of all time. Like they did not come up with that mechanic for like pulling back the you know, the whatchamacallit, slingshot.
Yeah.
And then like firing into a tower. They did
so many like one of my favorite Souls games is Neo. That's a clone of Souls games. Like it's just set in like Sengoku, Japan. It's just like it's all like feudal Japan stuff, but it's still Souls game. Like there's a lot of clones of Souls games. Like
it's a wrong verbiage.
It's bad.
The right words should be like building on the shoulders of giants. That's what that should be seen as.
Yeah, I mean
like,
there are genuine clones out there. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah. But that's cheap and nasty and made for profit.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously goes without saying, but just to sort of like you're cutting that cord a bit too short, in my opinion. Like there's a kind of you should be careful. Like some of the best games I've played are quote unquote clones. Blasphemous is one of my favorite Metroidvania games. You could argue it's basically just like Castlevania. It's called a Metroidvania because it's basically a Castlevania clone at that point. It sort of taps into all of that sort of general ignorance again. I mean,
but there are some gems there, and like they're doing some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So,
because this is another thing which using the word clone is dangerous because a certain game can become a genre, like Souls-like, right? Like Souls-likes are now a thing when they're technically they're just Souls clones. If you think about it, Metroidvanias are a genre. They're just Castlevania clones. You know, you could really slice that cake a few different ways. So you really need to be careful with that sort of verbiage because like you could get some really good games on your hands that you might have just missed over because like you might get a clone of a game and be like, yeah, this is clearly a clone. It's got the same mechanics, same art style, all that sort of stuff. But it does a few things unique in its mechanics. How about we take this game, reskin it so it looks nothing like that other game, and remix it in a way where like all of those new features shine through. Because that's a lot of what we do in the games industry. Like we're looking for that new thing, but in the context of a sort of like understandable, like recognizable package, so people understand like, okay, I like that other game that's kind of like this, so I'm going to buy that because I know it's going to be my thing. Same thing from Sony, right? Like whenever a Sony like AAA action adventure game comes out, you probably know it's going to be good because it's as you put it, it's like it rests on the shoulders of giants that came before it in that space, in that publisher, and they sort of understand that. So there's a lot of there's so many weird dynamics that he's just binarily like cut out and just been like, it seems like he doesn't understand it just yet. But I really hope that he learns and he picks it up and he understands it by the end, because like I said, it's more money for the industry. It's never a bad thing. So good luck to him. I really, really hope that it works out.
I wish all the best, and I hope he learns the ropes quickly, and I hope he publishes some cool indie games. Absolutely. And I hope he can have that reputation of being like, hey, this guy Dunkey, he funded all these cool games. He had the vision and foresight to see all these gems like come through the rise up and be really big. Yeah. But I guess watch this space and see how he changes, because that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see if an influencer can do that, because it means there's more influencers out there with a bunch of money with multiple lines of revenue that could help out indie teams. And like, as long as, because it's like you mentioned before, just to end this, you mentioned before, like I really hope this is just him playing to his audience so he can sort of get people excited about the games that's coming through his platform. But on the flip side of this, like all this extra work that he's sort of hinted at in the background, hopefully that work is genuine and he fully understands that process of how to get a game out, how to nurture a team, how to actually like have the foresight to actually see if a game is going to be good or not in its early production and early development stages. As long as all of that has been done in the background, I really hope that is the case, and he's not just thinking, okay, I play a lot of games, therefore I know what to publish, it's going to be super easy. I really hope that's not the assumption that he's made, because if it is, then he's going to have a hard time, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Indeed.
Yeah, we shall see. It'd be good to come back to this, when he's got a game out and have a look and come back. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is game devs charging for mentorship.
How dare they?
So this has been doing the rounds in Twitter, and I've seen a few different posts, and some people are offering $800 standard membership for 1 month, which includes 4 1.5-hour phone calls, so 6-hour phone calls in total for $800.
Yeah.
And then there's a premium mentorship for like $2,400, which spans 5 months. So 8 1.5-hour phone calls, an additional 3 45-minute check-in calls. £2,400. So like hundreds and hundreds of dollars charging for mentors' time, with the idea that it will get people into the video games industry. And some people think that 100% across the board, if you charge for your time, that's bad because you're stopping people from. It's basically gatekeeping people that can afford mentorship and people that can't afford mentorship. People that can afford mentorship are more likely to get into the games industry. The people that can't afford mentorship are less likely to get into the games industry. And it's also like abusing. I guess the worst case scenario I can think of, like playing devil's advocate, is like you're abusing the time, effort, and energy, skills, and expertise of your peers, where you've learnt, valuable information from, and you're making a profit and making money off the back of those skills and experience and expertise that you got for free. So it's like it's not really paying it forward. And other people on the flip side, I guess they think that free enterprise, capitalist market, if you've got charge for your time is valuable. If you're highly skilled, you should be compensated for it, and the best people will get charged the most money for the most valuable advice. I guess those are the two kind of opposing views on mentorship. What you've done mentorship, Vin. So why don't you tell us about your experiences and your where you're coming from? Because I'm not in a position to be able to mentor anyone. Actually, tell a lie. I have given advice to people.
Okay.
So I guess that is mentorship. So yeah, I've given advice on things that I would do in certain people's situations. Yeah. Which feels really weird because I don't feel qualified to at all.
Yeah, but what is the line between advice and mentorship?
I guess mentorship would suggest more of a ownership of like a coupling of people. Like one person is mentoring another person, whereas advice you can give out freely to multiple people, and you'd say the same thing to the same to multiple people, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they are like inherently sort of separate things, but ultimately the same thing to an extent. Like to me, a mentorship is something where you are doing regular sort of contacts with a singular person, and they are like sort of guiding you along and sort of giving you very personalized advice. The personalized advice bit is the thing that I sort of attach to when it comes to mentorship. Like that's the sort of difference for me, because as you said, like general advice can go to anyone. But if someone comes to me and they say, here's a piece of concept that I've made, Vin, help me out. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So you need to change the composition of this. You need to change your horizon line to lower because like a mid horizon line looks awful. All this sort of stuff. Like, and it can give like very private, like specialized advice for that one particular person. To me, that's a mentorship. That's mentoring someone to actually teach them not only how to improve their work, but like sort of mentor them about the industry and how it works and like what the expectations are for that person. Because like I've done mentorships and I've received mentorships as well from other people as well. Like there's people that I've gone to and asked them for advice, and they've been kind enough to like offer that advice personalized to me, give me feedback on my portfolio, give me advice on how to like break into certain jobs and things like that, which ultimately got me to the point where I could break in. And I've been in the industry now, like luckily for the past 8 years straight, and I've not like had to get another job, which is great. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are kind of angry at the idea of a paid mentorship, which is a sort of different thing. But
yeah, I guess I draw the line at payment. I think that's not mentorship. Like the words are a bit grey area, but I think that, like we discussed in the pre-show, like I think as soon as you pay for it, you become a consultant, and your person you're working with is your client, and there's a different relationship.
So if they changed it, I guess that's a question then. Like if they changed it from mentorship to consultancy,
it would feel better, I think, because everyone understands that it's a business and it's part of you making your money, and it's part of a job, and it's, you're running a business. As soon as you charge money for it, you're running a business, right? It might be a side gig, bit on the side, but you're a business making money, and you have a client who's paying you for your services.
Yeah.
And it just feels a bit more legitimate and a bit more...
Yeah, to me, like, consultancy means that you're just giving advice to people, to a company, right? Like, a consultancy to me is like if you're giving consultancy to a company, then you come in and you say, okay, you guys as a collective should do X, Y, and Z. You're not really mentoring that company, like you're consulting them on a product which is active. Therefore, consultancy is like there is a gains to be had for the people that you're giving advice to. Like they are directly, like the product that they need the advice on is going to give them money directly. So like both points are coming in at the same time, right? That's the sort of like the way I define it in my head. Whereas a mentorship,
that's different to a mentorship because it's just an individual, isn't it?
Yeah. So like I mean, is there a place for paid mentorships? It depends. This whole conversation, I mean, I sort of struggled with this in the pre-show as well, but this whole conversation is the most gray subjects of all gray areas. It depends is the word I'm going to use a lot. It depends. Like who is given the mentorship? Who's receiving the mentorship?
Let's do some scenarios. So I'm an aspiring 3D artist.
Sure.
And I'm fresh out of university and I've got a portfolio, and I approach someone who's working at a AAA studio, but they've been doing it a year and they're a junior dev. Should they be charging? Should a junior dev that's working as an environment artist in like a AAA studio be charging their time to someone who's like a year behind them that's just fresh out of university?
I use my words very carefully. Probably not. I use my very, very carefully because there's some juniors out there that are kick-ass and like really good, and they could just be like they could be at senior level from the beginning. So probably not, because they don't know they haven't got the advice to give in terms of, because they're still learning. They're a junior, right? Like they're learning on the job. That's basically how you sort of treat juniors for the most part. That's why they get paid a lot less. Unfortunately, it's just that's the deal in the industry that we're in. It's not inherently a bad thing, because it does sort of like, this is just the process that we go through. You start out as a junior for a year. You're a standard, quote unquote, whatever, for like 5 years, and then you become senior, 3 to 5 years. And then when you're a senior, that's when you can start giving advice to others. That's why you're called a senior. Like you're the one that looks after the juniors and stuff. It's like on the team that I'm on right now, we've got 2 juniors, and I'm trying to give them advice and stuff. Like that's sort of my role. Like if there was a middle person, they would sort of just ignore everyone and just focus on what they're doing. So yeah, I use my words very carefully in terms of like, probably not. They shouldn't be charging for it. But at the same time, should you go and seek that person and like pay them money, like knowing that?
What information could they say that I couldn't obtain through other sources? Like you said before, that there's countless Discord servers where there are like, seniors offering their advice freely.
It depends on the advice, right? Like if you're just asking for general advice on a very specific subject, like I could go onto Twitter right now and find 1 million developers. Well, not 1 million. There's not 1 million of us out there, but like say there's about 10,000 of them like actively on Twitter, like happily to give advice, right? You could find someone to get that advice. It's not a problem. But if you could choose like really specifically where you got that advice and to what sort of quality you want to sort of aim for, so then it becomes a different subject. And is that advice worth paying for? Like that's the real question.
I guess is it gonna convert? What are the chances that money spent is gonna convert into a job in the industry? I guess, which is what people, everyone wants out of this mentorship.
Yeah,
it's the likelihood of that.
So if you're like a developer, well, if you're a junior developer, like you've done like a couple of freelance gigs and you're really struggling to break into industry, like you're really struggling to get that first studio gig, and you're just like, man, I really want to work at a games company like Naughty Dog, right? Like, and if you found a developer that was charging $800 a month for a mentorship that works at Naughty Dog, doing the position that you're doing at a senior level, and they can give you the very specific advice of how to break into that industry. And I don't mean just like, the one-off email sort of thing. I mean like, no, they're in like 1.5-hour calls with you, talking to you and being like, all right, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And then when you do X, Y, and Z, they will then review it and be like, all right, this is close, but do this, like this will get you even closer. That sort of intricate advice. And then you break in, right? So that's the sort of situation that you want out of a paid mentorship for the most part.
Yeah.
So like take that scenario and then apply the costs, which that is. So we're looking at this thing, which the dude has put up on this Twitter page, right? So it's $800 standard for 1 month times 4 1.5 hour calls, which is like 6 hours total. Probably like chats back and forth as well, like in text and stuff like that through emails. So let's round this off as a day of work, right? So for a day of work, for this developer that's taken the developer's getting paid probably about, I don't know, about $500 a day at his normal gig anyway. And this is like that, but extra because of like the experience and all that sort of stuff. Like you have to pay for that. So for 1 day of work, you're basically paying one person 1 day of work for something that you could get 8,000% return on, because the average salary in the industry right now is $80,000 a year. So for $800, you could get $80,000. Is that worth it? Is that 1% worth it? That's what you've got to ask yourself. So when people say stuff like this, like, oh, it's, you know, all of it should be free. It's like, well, it's not, and it shouldn't all be free because people are experts in this field. But again, like if they are actual experts, if they're a junior developer somewhere, then yeah, they probably shouldn't be giving out this advice and absolutely not charging for it. Like it's a bit ballsy, you know, unless they're really, really good. And even then it should be like super discounted. Like, yeah, you pay me $50 and I'll give you like a month of feedback or whatever, like that sort of, whatever, fine.
That sort of ballpark.
Yeah, capitalism, all that sort of stuff. Like it's free market. If it's their information that they don't have to share that information, that their experience, you know what I mean? Like they don't have to like willingly give that away to everyone. They can capitalize on that. Like it's their information.
It's their prerogative too, I guess.
Yeah, and it's really up to the people that are actually paying into this. But I do understand this whole narrative that people might feel like they need to dish out, or like there's this paywall, right? Like of this paywall of information. Yeah, that's a tougher sort of subject to cover though.
It's a tough grey area because it just feels wrong that someone that can't afford $800 that doesn't have a job shouldn't have the same opportunity to get in the industry as someone that can afford $800 to pay for, like, it's basically like paying for private tuition, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's private tuition. Like that's what you're paying for. The thing is, like, all the information I can get out of a paid mentorship, you could find it in piecemeal from other people around the internet. Absolutely, for free. Like no problem. Like you could scan. You could find Discord servers with developers in. You can find Twitter handles where people are actively giving away. Like I've seen multiple developers online that sort of host spreadsheets, and it's just like spreadsheets of people willing to give out information and do free mentorships to people. So you as like a junior developer can go onto onto these spreadsheets, find a developer that works at a specific company and email them, ask them for advice, and you'll get it for free. No problem. No paid mentorship, no nothing. You can find all this information piecemeal, no problem. But if you want the package of like one-to-one private tuition, I am going to consult you your way through your portfolio / resume to get you a gig at a studio sort of thing. If you want that, then yeah, there's definitely a market for that. But it really... It's tough because like the industry at the same time is, while it gets expensive in terms of the advice that we're getting from people, it's also getting way cheaper in other places. Like the fact that you can get Photoshop for $10 a month now. The fact that Unity is free. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got this weird juxtaposition of we have access to all the tools now, but we don't have access to the advice. When we were in uni, we didn't have access to the tools or the advice. You know what I mean? And so it's like shit.
No, we had to go into university to use the tools because we just literally couldn't get it on our computers.
Yeah, unless we cracked it or hacked it or whatever. And when you did, it was always like a version from like 4 years previously, and it was never like great, and it always crashed or whatever because it was like constantly trying to do the DRM check-in, and it just was taking a dump every time it tried.
And I had like a laptop at uni. I didn't have a PC, so I couldn't do. I studied, 3D environment art. Was kind of like what I specialized in towards the end. And so, you have to have a big rig to be able to do that, because especially when you're not very good at optimizing models, you need to be, you need to have a chunky computer. And again, that's another thing that I'm quite passionate about, but interested in. It's like giving the right opportunities to everyone. So like there will be poor kids with no money that could be amazing 3D artists that, just given the right opportunity to access those top end, arts. It's basically art supplies, right? Like the top end art supplies,
sure,
including like 3D modeling software and like Mudbox and ZBrush and Maya but then again, you've got you've got Blender that's free.
True. Yeah, I mean, because we're talking about monetizing tutorials basically. If you go onto YouTube right now, you can find anything, and I mean anything in the games industry. You could find a subject on how to do a specific thing. So like with that, if that didn't exist, if the free advice didn't exist on the internet right now, if YouTube didn't exist, if Twitter didn't exist, if Discord didn't exist, if the forums didn't exist where developers hang out and stuff like that, giving away this advice, if all of that was like locked away, gone, and the only way you could get this information is locked behind paywalls for $800 a month or $2,400 for half a year or whatever. Yeah, valid concern, but that's not the world we live in. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's other information out there that you can gain, and you can gain all of this information piecemeal from other people. Like for us to say, developers, like senior developers that are working at these big studios should just be giving out this advice and giving up hours of their time going into calls with these people and saying because it isn't just one-on-one. That's another thing. Like if you start giving that information out for free, it's like you'd never do anything else other than give advice. So you really...
Because everyone will want it,
Yeah, and rightfully so, especially if you're good at what you do. There are people out there, like myself, like whenever I get emailed by anyone asking for advice, I've never not replied to an email for when it comes to developers' advice, ever. But if it was something a bit more catered towards a specific person, like, hey, can we have a proper mentorship? And they formalize it as well, not like me as the person that's giving the mentorship, but the student, and says, hey, how much would you charge for a mentorship? Or what does a mentorship structure look like for you and stuff like that. I've done free ones, I've done paid ones before. I've never advertised them on like that. It's just I get offered them and then I do them. Is that a negative thing that I've done both sort of thing? I'm not sure. I don't know what the moral answer is to that. But at the same time, if people are willing to pay for it and people have the experience and stuff, then it's a
free market.
It's a free market, right? And should we take that away and socially take that away? Is that inherently a bad thing? Because what's going to end up happening is that there's just going to be a lot of people that stop giving advice, and if they stop giving advice, then that's less information around the internet in general. Because the thing is, even now, I am a senior developer at one of the world's biggest game studios. I don't say that egotistical. I'm trying to sort of lay something out here. Even as a senior developer, I still buy courses all the time. I don't go to YouTube anymore because the YouTube videos are crap. They're always really specific about very, very specific subjects. I don't want that. I am one of these people that likes the catered experience of the whole thing. So I will pay $300-$500 for courses annually. At least one a year I buy off places like Learn Squared. And if anyone's a concept artist, you'll know what that website is. Learn Squared, Gnomon Studio, whatever it is. I can't remember what the hell that was called. People buy these courses for hundreds of dollars. And they're not even mentorships. They're not one-on-ones. You don't talk to these people. They're just YouTube videos behind a paywall. That's all they are. But if you send them your work, they will give you feedback on it as well. But that's not really what you're paying for. Some of them have them built into it. But the majority of people on those courses are people that are already in studio, that are already working because they're just trying to touch up their skills or whatever.
They don't need to try and get a job.
And they're the main market for those videos, which is kind of ironic, you would think, right? But it's a lot of these people are just trying to learn new skills. It's I recently did a course by one of the lead artists that was working on Ghost of Tsushima. I worked on one of his courses that he put out. Awesome course. And learned a lot from it, how his workflows work and stuff, and his advice and how he works with art directors and things like that. This is valuable information that you can't get from one tweet or one email sort of thing. And those courses aren't any joke either. They're 9 hours long, just broken up into videos. Him painting, and you can see every single step, and you're just learning this sort of stuff and absorbing it. There's no free substitute for that because you're taking time out of their day This isn't a 5-minute like YouTube video like people sort of have the assumption of. Like, these are in-depth tutorials that are really like specific, answering very, very specific subjects. So yeah, it's the paid mentorship, man. It's tough.
It's tough. I mean, yeah, on one hand, there's a free market. On another hand, with a free market, you'll always get those sharks that are charlatans that are trying to make a quick buck, that are charging over the odds compared to other people with less useful information, that don't have people's best interests at heart and want to just make as much money as they can.
Absolutely.
You'll always get those people, sure. And it's about, I guess, finding those people, identifying them, avoiding them, and going with free information, and then however as much information as that you can afford that you think you'll make the biggest benefit from. So here's another question for you. Now we're living in the world of AI, and we think that there's going to be less like concept artist jobs available. Not necessarily like, art directors are still going to exist, and very specific art will still need to be made. But we suspect that there's probably going to be fewer jobs in the next few years off the back of augmented artificial intelligence, AI generated images. What? So if someone wants to like concept artists now, like you're a concept artist, like now we're in this space. Would you be giving advice to people that want to be concept artists? Like, you can still be a concept artist, but there's going to be less jobs. It's going to be more difficult. Try to do something else with your skills. Or like, are you going to take on jobs for like concept artists to try and get in the industry? Or like, has that affected your opinion on taking up like clients or like being a mentor to other people?
I'm not like an active like mentor or whatever. I don't really do them that often. I only ever do them if people are asking for them specifically, basically. But when it comes to that subject in particular, when it comes to AI, I've had students ask me about AI. It's like, should I be worried about this? Like sort of like a general thing, because they want to know if everyone's sort of crying wolf about this is like, are they right? Like, should you be worried about this? Like, that's the general sort of question that they ask. And I'd be blunt with them. I say, you should absolutely be worried about this. You should look at avenues where you can get into the industry where you don't need to rely on AI, or people have to use you instead of AI. You have to look at it more of a process like that. If you're just, and that's good advice in my opinion, like in terms of saying, okay, if you just want to draw like moody, fancy landscapes, you're done. Like, you're not going to get into the industry because, yeah, you can just like push some buttons and put a prompt in and get that image out of AI repeatedly, like hit refresh over and over and over again. Thank you for the 29 images in 3 minutes, computer. Awesome. Why am I hiring this person? Like that, those are the sort of advices that I give, which is like, you need to get really like technical and specific, learn how to use AI in your workflow for the time being. But yeah, if you don't break in within the next few years, it's only going to get harder. That advice is, I much prefer to arm people with the truth rather than, like kind of like beating around the bush about like, well, it might work out for us. Like we might be able to use AI as a tool instead of it taking over our job. Yeah, I could do that all day, but it's not the truth. People internally at these companies, we're talking about it. We're worried. Really worried. People are like, the super seniors and the art directors are just like, yeah, whatever, it's not going to affect me, because it absolutely won't. It will not affect them. But like the standard concept artists and the juniors, the people that are about to break in, or the people that are thinking about getting into this industry, they should be looking at this and sort of thinking about, okay, how can I maneuver this so it doesn't kill my job? It's not gonna remove all of concept artists. We talked about this before, but it's absolutely going to reduce them. It's going to reduce their numbers. And what does that mean? It's going to become way more competitive, and you're going to need a lot more advice, which is where paid mentorships come in. So it's kind of like it's come full circle, right? So yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be people out there that are capitalizing on this a little bit too much. But I sort of put a little bit of responsibility, not only in the hands of the seniors that should be charging a reasonable amount, but also putting it into the hands of the people that are buying this, the people that are actually paying these people money. Like, do your research, check these people out. How many successful mentorships have they done? Ask them these sorts of questions like, hey, how many people have you helped that have successfully gotten into industry? Can you give me some names? Can I contact them and ask them how their experience with you in your mentorship was? These are the questions that people have the responsibility to ask themselves. Like, it's not this shouldn't be like just handed off to people that are sort of ignorant to this. Like, you need to be smart about how to go around this, and who, like, the advice that you're getting people from. Like, we talked about this before in terms of like, be careful who you get your advice from. And this absolutely is like the pinnacle of that. Like, if you're like asking people for advice, then you should check up on their credentials. It's like, if you're a student and you're getting advice from rando concept artist online, go look at their portfolio. Is it good? Because you get a lot of people out there that really like giving advice, but they're terrible at the job. Happens a lot. Yeah. Like, there's people that are too excited to get to that mentorship stage. They're too excited to get to that point where they're the most knowledgeable person in the room. Like, they're really excited about that, too excited to the point that they start giving out advice a little bit too early. And so you've got to be careful with that. And mentors are the same thing. Like, if you're doing a mentorship, do your damn research. Like, look up who are these people? Have they got credentials? Like, have they worked in the industry for at least 5 years? Who have they worked for? Are they working on stuff that you want to work on? You know, have they worked on stuff that you want to work on? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself as well. Like, it's not just a responsibility of the person giving out all this advice, but it's you have to meet them halfway. You have to be careful about this sort of stuff, especially when you're putting hundreds of dollars into stuff. Like, it's not. Yeah. People have this assumption that mentorships go like this. You Google mentorship concept artist. Like, okay, click top one. All right, where do I put in my credit card information? Okay, there it is. Click send. All right, now teach me how to do concept. That's not how it goes. It's really not. Like, there's this weird back and forth like conversation long before money is involved about like, okay, are you the right person that I can mentorship to mentor? Like, am I the right mentor for you? There's this weird back and forth, and that's how it should go. If anyone asks for money up front before you even have that conversation, it's a huge red flag. Like, people should probably know better as well. So yeah, it's tough. I'm sure there are some malicious mentors out there, and I'm sure there are like some really bad practices going on. But for the most part, I think it's hard to be binary on this. Like, it's a very, very gray area.
It's interesting that on Twitter, I've not heard of like horror stories from people where they've gone, I paid X amount of money from this person and I never got anywhere. Like, I've never heard like horror stories on Twitter. But what is doing the rounds is like people advertising thousands of dollars is doing the rounds and saying, oh, that's terrible, you shouldn't do that. Like, from peers. So like people that are kind of like similar going, this person's charging hundreds of dollars, this person's not charging hundreds of dollars. You know, who's got the moral high ground, I guess. But yeah, like, ask for testimonials, ask for yeah, that's a good advice. That's really good advice. Like, ask for testimonials, figure out who's spent the money, you know, and seeing what consequences have come out the other end. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
I never really thought about it.
Yeah, for anything really. Like, if you're getting your first job in the industry, like, Christ, go into Glassdoor, go and look at some reviews. Like, Glassdoor is an amazing place for that as well. And they might even do like mentorship stuff on there now. I'm not too sure. There's probably websites that do reviews for that. But what happens is when someone's leaving a company, or they're in a company, or they've been there for a long time, people go onto Glassdoor to sort of give a review of the company that they're working at, to actually tell you what it's actually like internally. And it's oftentimes it's very different to like public perception, which is a good and a bad thing. It's like, there's companies like, you think, okay, if they make good games, therefore it must be a good place to work. It's not the case, ever. Yeah. Ever. It's never the case, actually. I don't think I know of this. The only place that I know that make really good games, that have a really good reputation, is Bethesda, Maryland studio. Like, everyone that works there, they never leave, ever. And they make 10 out of 10 games. They love it. And then, like, they're the only ones that I know of personally. Everyone else is jumping ship constantly. Like, people at Naughty Dog don't last more than a year and a half. That's just fact. Like, there's a forever revolving door. There's no one there's not a single concept artist, I don't believe, that worked on The Last of Us Part 1 remake that was on the original game. Like, that's how quick their turnover is. People just do not last at that studio, but they make 10 out of 10 games. Yeah. So like, there's constantly things like that, and you got to do the same thing for mentorships. You've got to like cut through like names and all that sort of stuff and do your research and figure it out and see if they are actually the right person for you to actually pay and sort of get this advice from. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, and I guess the correct answer is it depends. There's no right or wrong. The moral justifications are could be taking advantage of people, you could be giving people exactly what you want, and you could be undercharging your time, or other people that are willing to do it for free are just kind-hearted people that want,
Yeah, it's another example of the games industry public perception versus like what actually happens in the industry. Again, it constantly happens. It's like the example I always give for this sort of stuff is like the sort of the view, like obviously I'm biased, like full disclosure, I work at Ubisoft. But the like the example I always give is that when Ubisoft was getting absolutely torn out, everyone focused on a very specific person at the company, which is Yves Guillemot, right? Like the head of the studio. Yves Guillemot has to go. Like he heads this. Like he needs to leave. He needs to get out, sort of thing. I have no sort of opinion on that. I don't know the guy, right? I've met him once. That's it. Like I don't know the guy. Like I don't know what his like managerial style is. I haven't got a clue. I'm not gonna like pull an opinion on that. Everyone was going after him, but you go onto Glassdoor and you go and look, and Glassdoor and LinkedIn. He has won Best CEO award for like 10 years or something, multiple times. So if he's like, how can those two things like coexist? I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle. But the point is, it's not one or the other, and it's that's the sort of thing that you got to constantly sort of look at. And it's the same thing for everything in the industry. Any good place that looks like it's a good place to work, any mentor that is perfect, they're probably not going to be. But are they the worst person in the world at the same time? Probably not. So you need to just do your research and really figure this stuff out, because you won't get this information on a Google search, unfortunately. That's not how it works. You need to talk to people, actually figure out what their opinion is about whatever you're putting money into. And if you're doing a paid mentorship, then just do your research.
Yeah. And, one person's acceptable as another person's extraordinary.
Exactly.
In terms of working conditions, we're all different. We all like different things. Like, I didn't really get on with the whole major studio vibe, but that was how many years ago now? Like 9 years ago?
Yeah, and that studio that you worked at has definitely gone under by this point. So
it's closed. Yeah, closed ages ago. So, yeah, and there was some things wrong with it. But it's kind of tarnished my perception of probably studios, I imagine. But other people were like, "This is the best thing ever." Like my really close friends were like, "This is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted." Horses for courses. So some people mentoring, it's exactly the right thing to do, and they got money to spend, and it's a great investment. And if they can get a job in the industry, then it's perfect. Other people, it's totally unacceptable, and that's also correct. Both can be correct at the same time for different people, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess like the expectations of what you think the result's going to be are something that people need to sort of be careful of when it comes to mentorships. Having a mentorship does not mean you're going to get a job at the end of it. Same thing for university, right? Like you go in university, there's a lot of kids in university that are just like, I'm going to go to university and I'll have a job by the end of it. No, it's not how it works, especially if it's portfolio based. Like you need to put the work
anything
in.
Art based.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to put the work in, because there's plenty of people that just don't do that extra stuff that still break in because they've got talent, they've got time, and they've put effort into it. And you've got to sort of look at that fact. You can't pay your way to success with this sort of stuff for the most part anyway. So if you think that you can, then you're not really going into the mentorship with the best intentions. And so you need to sort of be honest with yourself before you do these things anyway. But inherently, are mentorships bad? I would say no. Paid mentorships anyway. But everyone is entitled to their opinion on that. I'm not saying that because I've done mentorships and received them at the same time in the past. It's just I see the inherent benefit of having that very intimate line of advice where you're catering like advice to really, really help people out.
Really super specific. Like you change this to this, change that to that. do this, do that.
Going back and forth on a concept or something and just really getting it looking professional so that person has a fighting chance to break into industry. Like that is kind of worth money sometimes. That was the most valuable
stuff when we were at university. Like literally that advice was the gold dust of university.
Yeah.
Like when we would get the time with the tutors and they would actually give us that practical, if you did this, then this will happen, and this would look
I mean,
better.
Like you just nailed it on the head. Like we have problems with paid mentorships from people that are in industry, but we don't have a problem with universities where you're paying $30,000 a year to, you know, get advice from people that have been out of industry for 10 years. That's fine.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Like how, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the perception of that is kind of like, okay. I mean, you just admitted it yourself. Like, yeah, it was the most valuable part, but you were paying money to do that, Chris. You know what I mean? Like a lot of money, like a lot more money than you would be paying for a paid mentorship.
A one-on-one. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting thing, but yeah, it's tough. Like I wouldn't let the bad eggs in this respect like ruin the whole batch sort of thing. It's kind of
just be vigilant and do your research.
Yeah, as with anything on the internet.
Like with most things.
Like
anything that you're going to spend money on.
Exactly.
Right?
Anything that you spend money on, like just be careful. Christ. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to end it. Yeah, that's kind of a positive note for it makes a change with us in this podcast.
Yeah, we are normally just complaining about stuff ironically, but there it is.
But yeah, what have you been playing anything? You've been
Absolutely
busy?
nothing. I picked up Horizon Zero Dawn a little bit. I put a couple of hours into that yesterday. I might carry on with that. Like I'm on the Gemini mission, the one after the Gemini mission, so I'm like very close to the end.
Yeah.
I need to finish that game off and just get out of the way.
Is that Zero Dawn or Forbidden West?
Forbidden West, sorry.
Forbidden West.
Yeah.
You're not finished it. Oh, right. Okay. So you're right. Okay.
Yeah, it's not caught me like the first one. So I'm just trying to push through it just to tick it off at this point. It feels more and more like a chore.
I know what they were. They did what they were trying to do. What they were trying to do was appeal to the people where they wanted more of the last one, and they've delivered on that. There's more
without doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
not as tailored as my preference.
Yeah, the story just didn't catch me in this one, I guess. Like that's the thing that really drove me through. The first one was like, okay, what are these robots? Like, how do they get here? Why are they here? What is their purpose and all sort of stuff? And you're constantly like, what's the Horizon Dawn? What's the Zero Dawn project or whatever, right? Like you're trying to figure out all these things, and then like at the end, you just like you learn all this sort of stuff, and then you get like this epic battle or the people that you've met on the way and stuff, and it's like, yeah, awesome. And it kind of feels like the second one has got a weaker story, but they're trying to keep that same intrigue, but it's heading towards the same sort of climax. Like all these people you've met along the way. Hey, we're going to go and do a big battle. It's like, yeah, we did this last time. Why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
Again, and it's very strange. And because of that weird repeatability, it's kind of like the same thing with Star Wars Episode 7. It's very, very similar to the first Star Wars movie, like Episode 4, right? Like it's very, very similar. It's just about, another Death Star. We got to destroy it, right? Sort of thing. Feels like that. You know, it's like, yeah, it feels different, but it's kind of the same game for the most part. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just gathering people to help me in this final battle, and probably going to win because, hey, it's a video game. That's what happens. So
yeah. From a narrative point, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but the ending, I really had a bone of contention with one specific aspect of the ending, and it was where the game ended. I would have changed where the game ended.
Okay.
And it really, really annoyed me.
Right.
Yeah, but we can talk about that when you finished it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game though. I'll give it that.
It's lovely.
The main things that really
combat's fun.
Combat's great. The only thing that really annoys me is just Aloy just needs to shut up. Like she just ruins puzzles. She just ruins so much. Like I mean, it got to a point I was making a joke. Like as I was playing it, like I saw a vent like that I needed to go through in the distance, sort of thing. Like it turned the corner, I saw the vent, and I was like, "Don't say it!" Like out loud. My wife sat and she's like, "Don't say what?" And then just as she said, "Don't say what," Aloy went, "Oh, maybe I should go through that vent," like instantly. And I was just like, if I can predict this sort of stuff, it's broken. Like it's busted.
Yeah.
Like it's bad.
It's supposed to be a tool to help, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like the whole point of an action adventure game is that little bit called adventure. That little.
But this is it. It's one tiny thing. It's just balance. It's just slightly not balanced, and it's one thing, and it's tiny, but it's so huge in the impact. Like one tiny little thing.
Just make it an option. Make it an option, man. Just put it in the settings. No tip hints. Let me hit that button. Just let me. Like if you turn that off, then I would be loving this game. It'd be awesome. It's like, okay, like how do I get it? Oh, cool, right? I've got to use my focus and scan the area and like try and figure this out. No, I walk into a room. Oh, I should go through that vent. It's like, thanks, I like appreciate it. It's a good thing, you know, like all these artists and designers didn't like light this thing perfectly and try and like make it so the level is dynamically readable and all this sort of stuff. And that vent wasn't chosen as a very specific blue, so with like a yellow outline, so I couldn't like figure that out for myself. Thanks for treating me like a toddler again. I really appreciate it. Awesome. It just annoys me. And also like Aloy is kind of arrogant in this one. I don't really like it.
Yeah, she's not as naive.
No,
I thought the naivety was quite endearing.
I don't mind her like knowing the ways of the world.
On a journey of discovery, you were there with her journey of discovery, but
yeah, it just feels like she rocks up at these tribes like, yeah, I know, whatever, and then she's just like, yeah, I don't need you, you need me. That sort of energy to her constantly. Like, I just don't like it. It's just, it doesn't. I much prefer Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. She's
more humble.
She was more humble, yeah. Even though she knew more than everyone else in Horizon Zero Dawn because she had to focus all of her life. She was still cool. Like she was learning, and even them little quippy moments of her being like, "Yeah, okay, that's not how it is, but that's fine," sort of thing. She still accepts other people's sort of views and things. In this one, she's a bit more, I don't know, bullish about it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm gonna finish it. We'll have a proper spoiler talk about it at some point. Well, how about you? Have you been playing anything?
I've been playing more Plague's Tale, which I'm really enjoying.
Still enjoying it?
Yeah, still really enjoying it. Haven't finished it as of yet, but I'm coming up to a really big tense moment where
you in a castle?
No.
Have you been in a castle yet?
No.
Okay, then mine now. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just checking. I didn't know if it was that tense moment or another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the kid's getting all sick, and we're coming up to a thing, and the kid's getting sick. I think I think something big's gonna happen because it feels like something big's gonna happen.
Oh, it's such a good game for a AA studio, man. It's such a good game. I really enjoyed that game.
I did find a bug where I got stuck in a tent for a while, and I had to like
bugs for days. Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite buggy. Like it was almost game break, and I had to like I had to like walk backwards out of a tent and then round the side of the tent. Yeah, which is really weird.
Yeah, the animations are a little bit janky and like there's a couple of bugs, but yeah, it's if you go in with the right expectations, like people will really enjoy that game.
I'm just playing it and just being impressed by what they've done. Like, wow, such a small team, that's amazing. I mean, that's a dev thing, right?
Yeah, it's like sequel's out in a month, perfect timing, right?
Yeah. Oh, it got taken off Game Pass, so I can't finish it unless I like buy it.
It got taken off Game Pass?
I think so, or it wasn't working last time I tried to play it.
Oh, right. Okay, so they took like the first game. You mean they took that one?
The first game.
Okay, because the second one's going to be on Game Pass. So interesting.
Interesting.
Why did they take that off early?
I don't know. Or it wasn't working at least on the streaming.
Maybe it was just a bug.
I hadn't downloaded it, so I was just playing it on stream. Maybe that was just a streaming problem. Who knows?
That's definitely a misstep though. Like if they did take it off Game Pass, like just before the sequel comes out, that's stupid.
Big mistake.
Yeah, stupid.
Huge. Yeah.
Oh well.
My little Pretty Woman quote there. Big mistake. Huge. No? Okay. Well, on that bombshell, I guess we could probably wrap this up. I was being Julia Roberts.
I believe you. All right, I believe you. I think I was forced to watch that movie when I was about 12, and I've yet to revisit it, thankfully. So, still going strong.
So if we wanted to play your adventure zombie game, Long Gone, or follow you, or figure out what you're up to, or what you're moaning about from one moment to the next, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Hillfort Games on Twitter, TikTok, and everywhere else. Basically, if you Google at Hillfort Games, you'll find me. Like I've infested the search engine at this point, which is great because you'll be able to find me a lot faster. You can wishlist my game Long Gone on Steam. I really appreciate that. I'm almost at like 8,000 people now, which is sort of insane. It's That's a lot of people, right? But yeah, you can keep up with development on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that sort of good stuff. You can find me on there with Hillfall Games. But yeah, how about you, Chris?
So kind of similar for me, I think, with Acrylic Pixel. So I'm Acrylic Pixel on Twitter, on YouTube, Instagram. You can wishlist my game that I'm making, Focus Find, 2D puzzle platformer on Steam. You can wishlist that. I do have a Patreon as well. If you search for Focus Find, you should be able to find it. Yes, so that's us. We also do an indie game dev roundtable if you're interested in indie games with Sam Webster every month or so. So, yep. And you can find us on video with YouTube or audio podcasts. We're on Anchor, so we're on pretty much every major podcast service.
Yep. Any of your favorite podcast services, we will be there.
Mm-hmm. And so if you like the episode, give it a like, subscribe, click the bell notification icon. It really helps us out with the algorithms and such. So we really appreciate that.
Indeed. All right. Until
next week then, I guess.
Until next week. Yep. Catch you later, guys, next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I did come up with like a genius plan, by the way. I've got a new big elastic band on my mic. So it shouldn't
fall out again.
It shouldn't fall out anymore.
Great.